Hi, everyone. How's it going? Welcome to Opinionate Lushes Books and Booze, where we bring in authors, indie authors, and they talk about their books. Today, we have Natalie Cross. Welcome, Natalie. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me. It's nice to be here.
It's great to have you. We're super excited. Tell us a bit about yourself, where you're from, how long you've been an author. What's your favorite drink? We would love to know everything.
Sure. So, wow. I don't know why I suddenly got tongue-tied there. I mean, my favorite, maybe I should just start with like my favorite drink, which is a glass of wine, obviously.
Nice. Yeah,
I am
perfect.
The world's like worst mixologist. Even like a rum and Coke. I can't mix a rum and Coke somehow. I don't know. Anyway,
we do 50-50 here. It's 50 Coke, 50 rum.
That's it.
Maybe
easy.
See, that's what I need is like really easy cocktail recipes. So mostly I just stick with wine for the most part. But I'm from like the Philadelphia area originally. And now I live out in Los Angeles. But actually, one of the reasons I love your podcast is my dad is Canadian. And so he's from Montreal, but nobody in the family lives there now. They're all in like Ontario, outside London, and then in Alberta for the most part. But I love listening to Canadian podcasts. So
Thank you.
Are we like a guilty pleasure?
I wouldn't say a guilty pleasure. I think you guys are just a delight.
Oh, well, that works. Thank you. And you want to tell us about the book that you're promoting today?
Sure. So it's part of my like ballroom mystery series that I have. There's 3 books in it. The primary one is called Ballroom Blitz, which I'm not reading from today. But that one's more of just like a straight romance suspense. It's like friends to lovers. It's a little bonkers and Scooby-Doo, and it's fun. But anyway, this one is called Ballroom Blind Date, which if I could work my camera, there it is. But it's a romance suspense novella. There's only kissing in it because it was a novella and I couldn't fit anything more in there. But basically it all takes place in one night, which is like the world's worst possible blind date that goes horribly, horribly wrong. But that's like just kind of a standalone novella in this ballroom romantic mystery series that I have.
Nice. Sounds interesting. I guess if you want to get into it, we have a couple of drink words tonight, which are puppies, house, and blind date. Am I correct?
Yeah. I got those written down. I'm all ready. Yeah.
Although, I mean, if you really want to like start drinking, I guess Tabitha or Dennis would also be good drink words. Because
all right, we can. I didn't
realize you could use names.
We can use those as well. Yeah,
we're adding it. We're gonna get into this. So whenever you're ready, you can read your chapter and we can drink.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. Tabitha half listened to the real estate agent's deep Philadelphia accent as she droned on about the school system and the importance of finding a good contractor for all the little fix-ups. Like Tabitha was a home renovation novice, she would have told the agent about her family, some of the finest contractors in the Keystone State, if she hadn't been so distracted by the presence of her too-late blind date. Damn Anita for setting them up. Damn herself for listening. Tabitha was too old for this kind of shit. After everything that had happened with Brian, she should have just said no to a blind date set up by her irritatingly happy dance instructor. I'll leave you two to look around the house while I lock up outside. Rita Foster, who needed a pantsuit that flattered her figure better, clutched her phone with white knuckles. No dawdling, we have to be out of here by 8. Seriously, did the house turn into a spaceship at 8? Tabitha had been there less than 5 minutes, and that was the 3rd time Rita had reminded her. Tabitha sighed, closed her eyes, and counted to 10. This could be her house. After all this time searching and getting outbid, this could be hers. Just stepping onto the land, a sense of peace had suffused her. Her parents had taught her to respect the bones of a place. Some houses were born good, some wrong. Some had the finicky personality of a thoroughbred, requiring constant upkeep and reassurance. Others embraced a Woodstock-era vibe, laid back and hazy-eyed, willing to forgive. This house reminded her a bit of a rescue puppy. Treat it well, and it would wait patiently for you to come home the rest of its life, wagging its tail and spreading joy. Treat it poorly, and it would chew off your face in the middle of the night. She knew how to respect a place. This house would be hers. There was no way damn Dennis would treat it with the love and care it deserved. She ran a finger along the white countertop. Thank goodness it wasn't marble. Marble was for thoroughbred houses. Tabitha? She did not spare him a glance. He didn't deserve it. Instead, she checked the cabinet underneath the kitchen sink, not out of any particular concern. The homeowners had an unexpected predilection for rat poison. Vermin wouldn't deter her from her dream home, but it certainly could help with the price point. She heard Dennis's sigh, something breathy and sincere, and her spine stiffened. He didn't know her. He didn't know she'd never yield. I'm sorry, Tabitha. Her heart clenched and roiled. Apologies were a dime a dozen in her experience. Brian had apologized after screwing Tabitha's tennis coach, and what had it meant? Absolute zilch. For stepping into my open house, she asked. He scoffed, and she turned on him, arms crossed on her chest, hip jutted to the side. Her power pose, the one she practiced in the mirror 1,000 times before she started her own firm. Your open house? He pushed his spectacles up the bridge of his nose, and some long-buried, treacherous part of her found it absolutely adorable. It's a free township. It's an open house. Ha! She shoved away the softer side of her that liked that silly, sweet gesture. She had dug a grave for that part of herself years before, after the incident. She leaned into him and lowered her tone. This is my house. I've been looking for this place for years, and this is everything I want. Get out. He ran his hands through his sandy brown hair. It reminded her of the beach and lazy summer days eating ice cream on a boardwalk. But she was not one to dwell on nostalgia. Not yet. Not until she had filled this house, with its angsty puppy vibes, with memories. Good ones. I will not, he said. He sounded almost prim, like he was in a 19th century adaptation of this conversation. I love this house. It checks every single one of my boxes. Every single box except the one where you neglect to show up on time for a date? She bit her lip. She hadn't meant to bring it up. She was fine being alone. She had only accepted the date as a favor to Anita. Since she and her partner Patrick had gotten together, they suffered from the same affliction as all happy couples, the insufferable desire to match their friends. And Tabitha wanted their friendship. It had been a long time since she had found a community outside her family that was so welcoming. She had needed it after the divorce. Dennis frowned, the crease between his light green eyes deepening like a rift in the ocean. You're right. I should have been on time. I'm not very good with keeping appointments. It's not like you can set reminders on your phone or anything. She just couldn't help herself, could she? She had to keep pushing. That's what Brian would have said, not that she cared anymore. Dennis pushed his hands into the pockets of his light gray slacks. I already apologized. I saw this listing in the open house notification, and I got too excited. That long-buried, soft part of her purred. Okay, fair point. This listing was her own personal unicorn, but she wasn't about to let him know that. So was I, but I still showed up at the restaurant. Dennis frowned again and pushed the spectacles back up his nose. As far as habits went, it was not the most irritating one she'd ever dealt with, but she doubted he even knew he was doing it. It was utterly non-Brian, which was ever so slightly adorable. Several long moments passed, with fumes practically rising from the pair of them as they squared off across the kitchen island. She had to force them a bit on her side. Nerdy guys had never quite done it for her before, but this one itched under her skin like poison ivy. Tabitha narrowed her eyes at him. She was in charge of her own life. She was never going to be a victim again. She wasn't going to back down. Not here, not ever. Dennis broke the stalemate first, slumping his shoulders and casting his gaze to the vinyl-tiled kitchen floor. Fine, I'm going to find the real estate agent. I'll get out of your hair. He yielded so quickly? She had been preparing for a full-out MMA brawl. Tabitha almost capitulated. Almost. He was a nebbish type of cute that tugged at something deep inside of her. But no, she hadn't made it in the luxury marketing business by kowtowing. She hadn't survived the incident and Brian only to give up on her home ownership dream this easily. Still, he seemed genuinely contrite. Her mother had always told her to listen to her gut when it came to people and houses. She should confront him, she should. Instead, she watched as he walked outside to the patio, through the full-length glass doors that opened on both sides. It would have been helpful to see the place in full daylight to get a better sense of the landscaping. She would have to talk to the real estate agent about a private showing where she could make her offer. If Dennis could find Rita, where on earth had she gone during her own open house? Also, this was ridiculous, following a grown-ass man she didn't like around a house that she did. She returned to her self-tour of the premises. She was inspecting a downstairs pantry when she heard Dennis's strained voice. Tabitha? Tabitha? One more thing she'd have to manage. Clearly the man couldn't do anything properly. He couldn't even find the real estate agent. Feeling somewhat justified, she sauntered into the hallway and halted directly where she stood. The swagger of smugness faded from her muscles. He looked terrible. Not just, I fucked up a blind date terrible, but terrible, terrible. His sandy brown hair was disheveled, and there was a high, unpleasant flush to his cheeks. She did not want to call the paramedics. Brian sometimes still pulled shifts in this township. "Are you okay?" she asked. He spoke rapidly, removing his glasses and rubbing them furiously between the folds of shirt front. "I can't find her. I don't know where the agent went. She said she was going outside, didn't she?" She held her hands in front of her in the same soothing gesture she used for anxious or feral animals. "Calm down. Everything's going to be all right." He glanced up, and she practically recoiled at the naked fear in his green eyes. "Something doesn't feel right." That gave Tabitha more of a pause. She was never one to discount a good old-fashioned bad vibe. Not after everything she'd gone through all those years ago. She had spent years of hard-earned money on countless hours of therapy and self-defense courses in order to learn that she should never discount a bad vibe. She placed a hand on his shoulder, surprised to feel the firmness of muscle. He wasn't a big guy, not more than a few inches taller than her average 5'4", but he was wiry, taut, like a sexy pencil. Not that such a thing existed. He raised his wounded gaze to hers and held it, a heartbeat in time, nothing more. A tingle swirled in the depths of her core, and she couldn't quite decide whether she was more surprised at the tingle's reappearance after so long dormant, or at its provocation. While she was decidedly not feeling the extent of his deltoids, the glass doors to the patio swung open. In unison, Tabitha and Dennis swerved their head toward the sound. "Oh, shit, not again. How is this happening to Tabitha again?" Two hulking men in black tactical gear frog-marched Rita Forrest, now gagged with her hands zip-tied behind her back, into the living room. Her red blazer was gone, and the white silk blouse beneath was torn up one side, the hems of her red trousers muddy and frayed. She had lost one of her shoes. Of all the things her brain could fixate on, this was the one Tabitha's chose. Where was her goddamn shoe? Tabitha would hate to lose her own shoes, her lucky peacock blue stilettos. Where was Rita's fucking shoe? Tabitha's chest constricted, even as her heart galloped, the sound of her pulse in her ears so loud she could barely hear it when one of the intruders spoke. Nevertheless, it wasn't difficult to get the message. It was expected, practically rote. Would it have killed the intruders to say something more original? "Stay calm, or everybody dies." That's the end of the chapter.
You picked really good words. Dawn Marie has to refill her drink.
My drink.
I shouldn't have added the names.
It was
bad
great.
choice.
No, that was perfect. Now I gotta get my lid on. Hold on. Oh, perfect. No, that was really good. I think I missed a couple, so let me just catch up.
I know, my mouth is dry. I gotta catch up too.
Yeah. Take a drink. Take a few. Sonia, any questions?
I wrote down a list. Okay. No pressure. How many unpublished and half-finished books do you have, or pieces of work?
Oh, wow. That's a good question. Well, I just had one work in progress that was 40,000 words in that I was like, I hate this. It's not moving anywhere. And so, literally 2 days ago, I think I just kind of left it, and I was like, I'm going to start over. And so I've now started over on that one. So that's one. I have 2, 3. I think I have between 6 and 9 that are either finished but need some editing or some beta reading, that are half finished, somewhere in that range. There are a couple also that are going to be released later this year that are almost done. If I can find covers for them, basically. Yeah.
Nice.
So, yeah.
What do you find easier, character development or world building?
Oh, that's tricky. I think character development is easier. The world building is fun, but it also requires a lot of description. And I think it's really hard because, there's that whole show, don't tell thing in writing. Yeah. And I think it's really difficult with a lot of world building to do that.
It's true. It's true. And there's really a lot of research that sometimes has to go into it, right? Yeah. Depending on what your world is about, you have to do a lot of research.
Yeah. That's why I admire those hardcore science fiction kind of people, because they get into it.
Yeah.
Or even like people who write like paranormal romances and stuff, because I mean they have to like commit to rules for their shifters and things, and
and
what
like
aliens can and can't do, and it's like that's commitment. I really
it
admire
is,
it. Yeah.
They don't like change it up throughout. Like
Yeah. Or hopefully they don't. I don't know.
Yeah.
I imagine
They
some
might.
people accidentally do. But
Yeah. Uh-oh.
Yeah.
We got angry emails.
Yeah, exactly. All of a sudden the blue aliens aren't blue anymore and people are like, what happened? Yeah.
When did they turn purple? What?
Yeah.
Then you have to make up some excuse for it, like, oh, it's just a rage thing.
They're
Like,
got
"That's
too
not
close
real."
to the sun, okay? And that's why they changed color.
Yeah, exactly. Romance reasons. Just say romance reasons and move on.
Yeah.
Romance reasons.
When they mate, find their mate, they change color, okay? Like, that's how it is.
Yeah, totally.
How did you not know that?
Are you not
Suspend
paying
your
attention?
disbelief.
Yeah. Gaslight.
Yeah.
Oh, I have the worst writing ever. This was a terrible. Okay. So, have you found a lot of support within your writing, like this book specifically? And like, who has been your strongest support in your writing?
Definitely my family, I'd say, like my mom, and my sisters, like they tend to be kind of my first readers. My husband like doesn't quite get it. He's just like, oh, you just go like write some books. That's so cool. But I don't think he's actually read any of them, which is also probably a good idea. But anyway, no, so yeah, definitely my family. I did meet like a critique partner on Twitter before I deleted my Twitter account. And she's been awesome. Like we trade chapters back and forth a lot, and she's been really supportive and helpful too. So it's nice. It's nice to kind of like meet other people.
Yeah.
Especially after, you feel very siloed, I think, after a few years in the pandemic, and it's nice to branch out a little. So
Yeah. I know we kind of touched base before we actually started recording this, but I have to ask, Panner or Pantser? Pantser.
Well, I've heard there's this hybrid term called plantser, which is extraordinarily difficult to say, but it's where you like have kind of a general plot outline and then you just sort of let it go where it will. So it's kind of like a mix between planning and pantsing. And I think I kind of fall into that. Like usually when I have the idea for a story, I like open a document and I just kind of download all the random weird things that have gone through my head and I put it into that document, and then I like try to build an outline around it, but it's usually a really kind of bare outline, and then I just try to make it work. So I mean my first drafts are kind of terrible, and when I go back in editing I just kind of try to add in things like, hey, by the way, this is who committed the murder the whole time. And I totally knew that. I don't know why you didn't know that. I knew it. Definitely. 1,000%. It's not a surprise to me at all.
Yeah. Again, with the gaslighting, we got to gaslight as much as we possibly can.
Exactly. Got to gaslight yourself sometimes. Yeah.
For this book, what was the hardest scene to write?
Oh, there's like a fight scene kind of toward the end, because you can kind of tell it's like a home invasion. Like they start out, they're supposed to go on this blind date, and then the guy Dennis like never shows up for the blind date, and Tabitha's kind of pissed about it. And then they go to this open house and they just happen to be there together, and then it turns into like a home invasion and they have to run from the home invasion. So there's a scene later on where they like, have to battle in a way, and that was really hard because it's really hard to like keep track of body parts in a way. It's weird because like it's almost easier to keep track of body parts in a sex scene than it is to keep track of them in a fight scene.
Yeah.
You're like, wait, what does that do again? How many times can you say thwap without it sounding like a 60s Batman episode? Like, okay. So that took a lot of editing time, I would say.
I have to ask, who is your favorite author?
Oh, that's tricky. It's a tie right now, like between Alyssa Cole and I just started reading all these Tiffany Jackson books, and I went down like a deep Tiffany Jackson hole, and I love her books. I don't know if you've read any of them, but they're like young adult horror kind of things. Like she has one that's based on Carrie called The Weight of Blood. It's so good. And if you listen to the audiobook, there's like a full cast for the audiobook. And anyway, so I've
hardcore.
I've gone down like a Tiffany Jackson rabbit hole recently. So I'd say it's probably a toss up between Alyssa Cole and Tiffany Jackson right now. But it changes all the time, right? Because
you find new authors and then you're just like, I love this work. I can imagine.
I don't know,
and then you're like, why isn't your backlist longer? What were you saying, Sonny?
Oh my goodness. I've been dedicated to the same author since I was like 12, which is like R.A. Salvatore. So like, the whole time, my whole life. Yeah. And Dahmer, yours is always changing, isn't it?
Mine's always changing.
Yeah. Who are you right now?
I just did Arena Kent Kick. Like I just was like reading her whole backlist, like her Royal Elite series, and she's an indie author. She's actually from the UK. And I just went through her whole backlist recently, and now I'm just waiting for a couple of arcs, I believe. I liked Chantal Tessier. She's good. I'm mostly into dark romances. It's just my thing. I've read a couple fantasy and a couple of like sci-fi and stuff, and young adult. Young adult, I liked Jennifer L. Armentrout. I liked her, like not the Blood and Ash series. That is more new adult. I don't want anyone who's a young adult to pick up that book. don't do it.
Young adult means something so different nowadays than it did when I was like a teenager.
Yeah,
I was a teenager, and there was like basically Judy Blume, and that was it. And then you just basically had to, if you liked anything kind of dark, you had to jump to like Michael Crichton and Stephen King and R.A. Salvatore and those kind of people. And nowadays there's so much variety in young adult, and I'm like, this is so cool. Why was this around when I was a kid?
They really opened up with their genre and stuff, and a lot more artists. And I don't mind young adult, believe it or not, even though I'm in my 30s. I don't think there should be an age limit.
I agree. I'm in my 40s, and I totally agree with you.
It's just there's like a restriction, not a limit, but a restriction, right? Like any age you can, like the older you get, the more you can read. But like, children should not be reading.
Yeah, no, like children shouldn't be reading new adult or anything like that. But like if you're older, you could be reading anything you want. I don't think you should be ashamed of reading what you want when you're 18.
When you're 18. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No. My 8-year-old daughter, she was looking at some of my books, and I was like, those are not for you. I'm sorry. Like, you may not read them. And then she was like, oh, Mom, you should read this book of mine. And I was like, I will read that book of yours, because then it's like having a book buddy. And also then I can just check to make sure that it was shelved appropriately. So just FYI.
Yes. So do you hide any secrets in your books that only a few fans would know? Like they have to be like a fan of yours to understand like this little Easter eggs in your books, or?
I like Easter eggs. I mean, all of my books are set in kind of the same world, even though they're all standalone. So like I try to kind of draw snippets from each one and then kind of drop them in along the way. So, like people, that like happens in a lot of series. You have people who from the first few novels who are kind of side characters who then pop up later in later books. And like one thing I'm writing, or I wrote, that's in the editor's hands now, but I wrote a like queer rock star romance. And I made up a band and this kind of thing, and made up a TV show for them because why not? It's fun. And I'm actually bringing that into my current like work in progress.
Fun.
Just to like have the band kind of follow along, because I was like, that'd be cool. Like people could just listen.
So you're
to
like
fake
kind
band
of doing like a crossover like type, like
yeah. Because again, just it entertains me. I don't think it needs to entertain anybody else in some ways. It's just like it's kind of a cool thing. Like if you want to read it, then you kind of be like, oh, cool, I know what that is.
Yeah, I love that in books where like you're reading one, you're like, oh my god, this was in a previous book. Like these are the members of like this book.
Yeah, definitely. No, I read like I was reading this Alicia Rye series, like one of her newer ones. I think it's called like Girl Gone Viral or something. And I read that one first and I was like, this is a really fun book. And then I went back and I read some of her like erotic romance. And I was like, oh my God, that was the family that shows up in Girl Gone Viral. She's so smart. How did she do that? It's just, I agree. It's so fun to kind of come up with those sort of things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like crossovers. Like, when you're watching TV, you're like, oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're in that show. That show's like showing up in this show. That's awesome.
It's very cool. It's all very meta and fun.
Yeah. What advice would you give to an inspiring author that's just starting out?
Like Dawn Marie.
Yeah. Say you want to give me advice.
Well, but you've already started, right?
Sort of. Yeah. Like I'm in the writing process.
That's totally fair. No, I would say just keep writing. Like write whatever comes out of you, because I mean, the point is to finish it. Like, even if you finish a first draft and your first draft is not what you envisioned it to be, you still have all the time in the world to like make it the way that you want it to be. And like, if you keep going back and kind of second guessing yourself, like I think especially for pantsers, like if you keep going back and like editing the earlier chapters, like you never quite move on to the fun stuff that comes up, or that your characters kind of show you. So I think it's good just to kind of push ahead. And if you get to a place where you're like, I really don't want to write this right now, but I know what happens immediately afterward, like I'll put a tab in it or change the color or make some kind of marker or something. And then I'll just move on. And then I'll go back later and fill it in. Because again, I think the point is just the more that you move forward, the easier it gets. And the more that you write and you keep writing, the easier actually like the words start coming to you. And the more like you know the characters and the more you know the world. And so it's a lot easier to fill in the story for the most part. But I totally get it, because like sometimes you just get in your head and you're like, this isn't working. Why is it so hard? Why can't my brain just automatically come up with words? Like, that would be so nice if they just showed up on the page instead of having to like sit there and type them out, because I don't.
Like, you kind of knew my idea and it just took off, but it didn't do it. It just, fell flat.
If I could just plug it into my brain and have it download on the screen, then this whole thing would be done.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's good just to kind of like keep going, because someone told me too, like that, again, the more you write, the more the creativity comes. And I've definitely found that to be true too. Like it took me a long time to write my first book. And then all of the books that I've written since then have taken me substantially less time. Because you just also kind of like know what to expect. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So just find the groove and then you'll get there.
Yeah, you just got to figure out what works for you and then go with it.
Yeah. And find the time, because that's always at a premium
that's
too.
the issue. Like,
no time.
Like I only get like 6 hours while my kids are in school. Yeah. And then like I have house chores to do like in between then. And then like, and sometimes I'll wake up at like 2:33 in the morning, and that's when I'll have like ideas. I'll wake up and I'll be like, oh, where's my notebook? I need to write stuff down or I'll forget. I'm like, what was that last night? Like, what was I thinking? Like, I don't remember.
No, I totally understand that feeling. My kids are 4 and 8. And I have a full-time job outside this too. So it's just like whatever 20 minutes I can find to squeeze something into is good. But I've definitely felt the same thing, Dawn, where it's the middle of the night and you're like, I have this brilliant idea. And there's like my pen's out of ink and I'm like, well, guess maybe it'll come back.
Yeah, hopefully.
You just hope that it comes back.
Yeah, exactly. Just keep praying. It's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. This is my last question. What's something you edited out of this book? And was it an easy takeout, or are you worried you shouldn't have taken it out? Like,
so there was a scene in it that just like didn't sit right with me. Because it's also like an interracial romance. And there was just a scene in it that I wrote like in the first kind of draft edits, and it was in there. And then as I was reading it and rereading it, I was like, no. I was like, I don't like the way this is. I don't like what they're saying to each other. I'm just going to nix the whole thing. And so I just kind of cut the whole thing out and put something else in. I mean, I think like, cause I do a bunch of rounds of edits for every book. And like, sometimes the first round of edits, everything is like, oh, okay, well, I guess this story works. I'll just fix a few things here and there. But by like the third or fourth round of edits, I'm like, this book is not moving like right around this page. Why is that happening? Like I'm writing, where I wrote, it's coming up later this year, but I wrote like a full length sequel to Ballroom Blitz. And originally it had like a very different beginning, like by 15,000 words. And I actually sent it off to my publisher, like with the original thing. And then she read it and she was like, oh, okay, well, here's my thoughts on it. And I wrote her back and I was like, I reread it. And I was like, I really don't like those first 15,000 words. I think I'm going to redo the whole thing and make it better. And so it wasn't like hard to cut. I think it was just kind of waiting to figure out that it didn't work. Nice. And to kind of be like, it's okay that it didn't work. Like I can cut it and then maybe add it on as like an exclusive epilogue or prologue or something like that for my newsletter subscribers. I try not to like fully delete anything unless it's really terrible, which some of it is. But like I try not to like fully delete anything. I usually just have like some random Word documents that say like deleted scenes. And then I go back to it sometimes and I'm like, oh yeah, it was probably a good idea. Deleted that. It really didn't make any sense at all. Okay. Yeah.
How long does it usually take you to write a novel?
It's a good question. Like a first draft or like the full thing?
The full thing. Let's just do the full thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'd say the full thing is probably like including editing and waiting for stuff to settle. I'd probably
say
from
the second the pen hits the paper till it is published.
Oh, until it's published, that about a year.
A year
for a full length novel, like definitely a year. For a novella, it's definitely shorter. Yeah, because they're faster to write typically, and they're easier to edit because they typically tend to be a lot leaner. But like for a full length novel, I'd say it definitely takes me about a year, like from start to finish. And then like my Ballroom Blitz is traditionally published through a small publisher called the Wild Rose Press. And so like I wrote the novel in like 4 or 5 months or something like that. And then I sent it off to the editors, and then it took about like a year from when I sent it off to her until it actually ended up getting published. So, but I think it's good to take your time with stuff. I mean, I know there's a whole big push in a lot of indie communities for this like rapid releasing. But it's so hard to do. Like, it is. When I have kids at home and I've got a full-time job, and it's like, I can't just like churn out books, even though I'd like to. It'd be so fun, but it's kind of hard to do. But that was a long answer to your question. I'm sorry about that.
No, that's
kind of droned on for a while.
No, that's perfect. We like detailed answers. I actually think I have a couple more.
Go for it.
The genre you write, is that the genre you also read, like on your spare time, or do you read outside of the genre you write?
I read pretty much everything, except for really high fantasy. I also have like a page limit, which is just my own personal, like slightly neurodivergent thing, where I just like, even if I really like a book, if it's like 600 pages, I'll read 350 and be like, that was an excellent book. And then I will never finish it. And it's not a factor of the book or anything. It's just, I don't know. I just have trouble focusing after like 350 pages.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Yeah. So, but I read pretty much every genre. Romance I really like because I like that I know that it's going to end okay. Yeah. I feel like there's a lot of uncertainty in the world, and sometimes I need that like sure thing HEA kind of thing. But I also really love like horror books. Like I think Sonia, you really like horror too, right?
No, she's sci-fi.
She's sci-fi.
Yes.
Okay.
Sci-fi and
Jessica.
fantasy.
Oh, Jessica.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I really like horror. I like thrillers and suspense books. Just like regular women's fiction. Sometimes I read nonfiction too, just, shake things
Change
up
it
a
up.
little bit.
Yeah.
Just to change things up a little. But I'm a total like mood reader, and basically like I see something on TikTok and I'm like, oh, pretty.
Yeah.
I go download it and I'm like, oh, now I own it. Maybe I should read it. Or I borrow it from the library or stuff like that. So yeah, but I'll read pretty much anything and everything.
What is the hardest part about being an author? Is it the writing or is it the marketing?
I think the hardest part is coming up with a title and a blurb.
I agree.
We were talking about that before you came in. Yeah,
It's so hard.
Yeah, I'm writing a book for my daughter for her birthday, and that's coming up in 2 weeks. And I haven't had like the title, and I was like, oh my gosh, like I don't know what to call it. I've just been calling it Danica's book.
Yeah,
like, that's it. Yeah. So, and like I just finally came up with one, and it's great. I'm sure it'll be fine, but it took so long. And Domini's like, I don't know what I'm naming mine either. Whatever happens, happens.
Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
Well, I asked the question on TikTok because I ask questions with authors. Like, I'll just randomly ask stuff on TikTok, and I'll be like, anyway. One of the questions was, do you pick your title, then write your book, or do you write your book, then pick your title? There were so many people. They're like, I have to pick my title first and then write my book. And I'm like, how? Like, what?
I know. Could they help me? Like,
yeah,
please.
And like I was telling Sonia, a lot of them even told me though that they changed their title halfway through or whatever because it didn't fit what ended up being.
Yeah.
Which makes sense because like I don't know how you can pick a title and then write and then just be like, that's it, I'm done. Like,
I don't know. Because they also like, again, just like you were saying earlier too, like the stories change and things change about it, and sometimes you don't even know where it's going, and then all of a sudden it's done and you're like, okay, well, guess now we gotta come up with a title for it.
Well, I guess not for plotters. They got everything done. They're like title, book, and ending, like done. And I'm just like, I don't even know what my conflict is gonna be yet. Like I can't, like I have a general idea what the book is about, but I think my conflict is about to change. I don't think it is what it was originally supposed to be. Mm-hmm. So it's all over the place. I have no idea. I have no clue how this is going to work. I'm only in chapter 3 and things are already not how they were supposed to be. They haven't even met yet. The female character and the male character haven't even met and things are changing. And I'm like, it is what it is. It's going to be something different. Whatever. Yeah.
It's okay. You can fix it all in editing.
Yeah.
It's not a problem. I think,
like,
are you, what genre are you writing, Dawn?
Dark romance.
Okay.
It's my thing. Like I've been reading a lot of it. I love it. And so like I have a general idea of what kind of book I want, like, and the world I want it in. Mm-hmm. But conflict, I want a plot twist. I want the twist, right?
Yeah.
The shock. And I've read so many books. So to make sure it's not like the other books I've read, and also like unique, but also make some freaking sense at the end, and not be like, this came out of left field. What? I thought the father was dead. Wow, how did he come back? Like, and have no answer how he came back. Like, no.
Just don't make it a dream. People don't like the dream thing.
Oh, I hate the dream thing too. I also do not like going back and forth from past to present a lot. There's a lot of books that do that, like back to when they were 16 and then you have to go back to present. And I'm like, that can kind of get confusing depending, especially when you have dual POV. Mm-hmm. And then like they're both going back into like the past and you're like, hey, whose memory is this now? Like, and I thought they were getting along. What happened? Like, it's just, so that's the thing I can't deal with. I
totally get that. I think the cool thing about dark romance too is that you can really like go wild.
Yeah.
You don't have to like follow any of these rules. You could just be like, what? They're in the mafia and this is what's going to happen. And like, you just have to kind of go with it. They're just
they
gonna
can
drive
murder
all
someone
over.
and get away with it because there is no law for the mafia. Like,
Exactly. Or they're like,
don't have
what?
to worry
She's the
about
daughter of a
prosecution.
serial killer. This is just the way you have to be. And it's like, oh, this is so cool. You could just like erase all the rules and start new. And that's
like,
awesome. That's awesome. You're writing that.
Yeah, no, it's difficult though. I think like I said, it's coming up with new ideas that is just, I don't want to repeat. I just don't want to repeat what someone else is doing. But also there is no choice because there is so many similarities. Like Mafia has been done thousands of times, and the Beauty and the Beast retelling through Mafia has been done. I can name 10 books right now, the top of my head, that did a Beauty and the Beast Mafia retelling. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm not doing that. That's for sure.
Okay. Well, I'm going to say something a little like controversial.
Go for it.
But the reason that there are so many of those is because they sell.
They do.
And the thing is that like, it's unique if you write it because it's your perspective and it's something that you're bringing to it. So, and also like readers tend to want like what they know.
Yes.
So again, that's the kind of thing like people search in like Amazon for like Mafia, Beauty and the Beast, like fairy tale retellings, high steam, like reverse harem, and they like search for that kind of stuff. And that's like literally what people want is exactly kind of what they've already read, just maybe with like a different trope layered in or something like that. So it is kind of fascinating.
I think it's because a lot of girls' favorite movie was Beauty and the Beast in Disney. Like,
I know.
Not that, like, some were Ariel and, like, The Little Mermaid, but most was Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah. It's the library scene. That library scene. Yeah. Oh, my God.
You want to kidnap me and then give me a library. I am okay with that. Stockholm Syndrome coming right up. Like,
although then you grow up to be an adult and, like, I don't know, you guys have daughters, right?
Yeah.
Like,
she does. I have 2 sons.
Okay. So like, but you have kids and like you grow up and you're a parent and then you look back at the Beauty and the Beast story and you're like, this is problematic in a way
it's so problematic.
I'm not sure I'm like okay with. And also like a lot of like Ariel too. I looked back at Ariel and I was like, wow. I have a lot of
she wants to change herself to be with a man. Like,
right, exactly. I'm like, I probably didn't realize this when I was 9, but now I do, and I have questions.
Our parents didn't care either. They were just like, yeah, it's cute. It's in the cartoon. It's cute.
Yeah. They didn't quiet for 2 hours. It's fine.
Yeah. No, I think that's everything. All the questions I have. Do you want to plug in your socials where you can get your book?
Sure. So they're available everywhere online for the most part. Like they're not in like Barnes and Noble or anything, but they're available on Amazon and Kobo and everywhere else online. I do have like a new like super spicy pen name, NC Ross, and that's on Kindle Unlimited, but the rest of the books are not on Kindle Unlimited. And you can find me everywhere at Natalie Cross Writes.
Yes, which we have down below if anyone wants to check that out.
Just the way things go.
It was so great to have you on here. Thank you again for joining us for Books and Booze on Opinionated Lushes. And I think that is everything. And Sonia, do you have anything to add?
No, thank you so much for reading to us. It was great.
Sure. No problem. Thank you for having me. I really, really appreciate it. It was really nice to talk to you guys.
You have actually like a narrator voice. Like when you were reading, I was like, is this a narrator? Like
it was good.
You did really well.
Oh, that's really nice. All I can hear most of the time is my like vocal fry. And I'm like, ooh, lived in Los Angeles way too long now. Okay.
All right. Well, thank you again for joining us. And I think that will be everything. And good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.